I'm wearing my leisure suit today. I am not doing my hair. I had enough energy to do my makeup, and then I was like, that's enough for today. Side note, I just want to tell you, if these are still available at Old Navy, I'll link a picture up here if they are. Get them. It is a matching cardigan and shirt and pants. I would have bought one in every color if they had more colors, but they only had this one in blue. And when I went up to buy a second pair of the pants, because I went back to Old Navy, the woman at the register was like, oh my God, this is like the best purchase I've ever made. I just purchased these. Did you buy the matching shirt and cardigan? And I was like, yes, of course I did. I already have both at my house. I'm just getting a second pair of pants just in case. So soft, absolutely incredible. I feel like a suburban housewife who's going out to get the mail right before she goes to her husband's funeral, who died in very mysterious circumstances. And I have been told by more than one person that that is the vibe. Anyway, that is not what we are here for. We are here to talk about the first, my New York excursion, okay? So I figured the best way for me to do this is to start, just to go in order. Talk about the 4-5 bookstores that I went to in the 3 days that I was in New York, while my cats are being absolute menaces. So day number 1. Tuesday, I don't get in to my hotel room until like about 5:30 in the afternoon. Most of the bookstores that I was looking at in New York close at like 7, maybe 8. So I was really pushing it. And mind you, I literally have never been to New York before. So my plan was to just touch down and figure it out. Luckily for me, I've lived in Madrid for like numerous summers. So I know how to take public transportation, and I've taken the metro there. So I figured I could figure out the subway situation pretty easily. I get there, I already have like a list of stores that I want to go to, and I've pulled up on Google Maps kind of where they are so that hopefully I can kind of clump together a few of them that are in like the different areas or the different boroughs. I got there really late on Tuesday, so I was very limited, not only by the time it would take me to get to where I was going, but also by like what time these places closed. So I finally decided that the first night that I was there, I was going to go to 3 Lives and Company and the Strand. I'll be honest with you, neither of these were on the top of my list. They were the only 2 that I was going to be able to get to in time. I also should preface this by saying that I had not eaten anything since 4 a.m. that morning, because that's when I got up and started this excursion. And I was hungry, and I figured it would be so easy for me to find something to eat because it's New York and there's tons of places. But that's the issue, right? Is that there's so many places to eat that was like a running theme of this trip, is that I would get so overwhelmed that I would just keep telling myself, the next place that you go, you'll find someplace to eat. The next place you go, you'll find someplace to eat. So by the time that I got to these bookstores, I was a little hangry, I will admit. I think had I looked at 3 Lives & Co.'s website, I would have known that maybe it wasn't my vibe. They just seem a little bit smarter than me. There are multiple words on their about page, couldn't tell you what they are. But I think that they're really known for doing like readings and author events maybe, or like book clubs. So my plan was I was going to go to 3 Lives and Company that closed at 7. I was going to go to the Strand, which was only like a 10-12 minute walk away, because they didn't close until 8. 3 Lives & Co. was also the only bookstore that I couldn't find an Instagram account for, because I was trying to get the vibes to figure out, since I knew I had limited time, where do I want to go first. So I honestly didn't know a lot going into it. And I am prefacing all of this to say, I'm sure it's absolutely wonderful. I love indie bookstores. If you are around there, go check it out. I bought something from there. I was on a mission to make sure that I supported every single store that I went to, and I love that. I just don't think I'm the target audience for that, and that's totally okay. So this was just a tricky one to start off with, because this did not set the vibe for what my experiences were like to come at the other bookstores. It was just fine. There was nothing wrong with it. You walk in, it's this small little space, which is great, and it's like there are tons of books. Like they have really maximized the amount of books that they can fit in that space. But I don't know if they've necessarily maximized how to organize and sell and talk about those books. One of my favorite parts about local indie bookstores. Excuse me? Can I help you? He's never done that before. Good luck with that. Now he's gonna teach Willow. One of my favorite parts about the experience of actually shopping in store at an indie bookstore, because I can get a little bit overwhelmed with seeing so many books in person, is like the specific recommendations. Like I love when they have like a staff recommendations with like little blurbs about why they love those books. That automatically is going to help me feel like here I at least, because trying to go through and read so many synopses, I don't like reading synopses. I get most of my books that I read from recommendations. So that's my favorite way. I also love when they have different tables set up with, here are all of like the banned books or queer books. It's something to help me differentiate what books I am looking at, to help me narrow down what I'm looking for. So I need a little bit more. And I got overwhelmed. However, I did find a couple of books that I originally thought maybe I would pick up, including The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel, because I just read Station 11, and I've read the other book from her that I loved even more than Station 11, but whose name always escapes me. And I also saw Out There by Kate Folk, but I was just like, if I'm going to be paying full price for a book in New York, I want it to have like a special meaning. I want there to be a reason why I picked up this book at this bookstore that I can attach that memory to anytime I look at the book. My plan going into stores, I just circle a few times. I look like a stalker, okay? Because I need a few times of circling and looking to finally feel a little less overwhelmed, get my bearings, and then I can start diving deep in and like looking at specific books. Thankfully, I ended up going off to the section that looked like mostly nonfiction, so I really didn't even look at it too hard because I was like, that's probably not my thing. And I recognized a few books that were on this one shelf, and I was like, all of these are queer books, but they're not all genre related. The only thing that I know about them that they have in common is that they're queer. And then I started noticing that that's what all of those books had in common. But it wasn't like they had unless I missed it, maybe I did, but I was looking around. They didn't have a clear sign being like, these are queer books, because if they had, let me tell you, that's where I would have started. And immediately when I went over there, I saw this book. And I mean, come on, the cover says it all. This is just so my vibe and so stunning, and it's a novella. And when I open it, because I'm like, that kind of looks like horror, and it's in the queer section, queer horror is my vibe. It's described as a deliciously dark tale of passion taking an unsavory turn. Say no more. So would I normally spend $25 on a new release hardback novella that I knew nothing about and hadn't heard any reviews about? No. But I thought that this was perfect. Like, I had never heard of this book before. Come to find out, this is the author of The Violence. Didn't know that. Oh, and Paul Tremblay blurbed it? Now that Kayla has been doing her series on like author blurbs, now I'm looking at them more when I used to never look at them. This is exactly what I was looking for. I would not have picked it up if it weren't for going into that bookstore specifically, seeing that display, noticing that they were queer books, and picking this up. And because I had told myself my goal was that I was only gonna buy one book from each store, because otherwise I knew I would just get myself into a mess of justifying buying a lot of books, and that's not what I wanted. I would rather have a singular book from the store to attach that memory to. I also have their little like book. Is this gonna focus and let you see anything at all? There we go. But honestly, I left there just feeling like, oh, okay. She was really sweet when I was checking out. She asked me if I wanted a bag. I said no at first, and then I was like, wait, I still have one more store that I have to go to before I go home, and I'm probably gonna go get something to eat. Having this to carry around in a bag would be great, because all I brought with me was like my small little crossbody purse. It was a bag. It didn't have handles, so I should have just said no, because then I was just carrying around a book inside of a paper bag, which I then ended up throwing away so that I could fit the book in my purse. Luckily, it was a novella. But I feel like the vibes of I was so excited and then it just didn't start off great for that bookstore also kind of matches the vibes for how Bloom went for me. So I did already read this last night. I read it in one sitting. I will say I flew through it. I have some thoughts and feelings, okay? Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. We are following Ro. One Saturday goes to this farmer's market and meets Ash. Ash is just this like beautiful blonde cottagecore girl vibes. She bakes cupcakes and makes soaps and candles and sells plants. Ro just got out of a relationship with her ex who cheated on her, who was a guy. She's never been in a relationship with a girl, but suddenly she sees Ash and she's like, what? Do I like women? Maybe I do. Which I can hard relate to. That is pretty much how my experience of realizing I was bisexual went around. Randomly in class in Costa Rica, saw this woman and I was like, oh, alrighty, there it is. So she starts coming back every Saturday. They start talking, making connection. She's like, you're gonna come see me, right? Here's a plant. Here's some of my yummy, delicious cupcakes and soaps. Aren't they so amazing? And as I start getting closer and the relationship starts developing, Rose starts realizing, seeing that maybe there are some flags here. Like, Ash is doing some weird things. The way that Ash is responding to like Rose showing affection at times is a little odd. Ash herself is a little odd. She like lives out in the middle of nowhere on a farm by herself and is like really disconnected from technology, like doesn't even have a phone. And I don't want to say too much else about the plot since it is such a short book, but here's the thing, is I could have loved this book. The themes that it was discussing, the plot itself, sapphic, horror that is slow moving but eerie, and we're starting to get some weird vibes, and then it all comes together, that is my vibe. I just honestly think the execution of this was not good. I get books are subjective, I get it. Okay, in my opinion, this was not done well. Nothing happens until literally like the last 12 pages of this book, which would have worked for me if we got more glimpses or like answers of the horror. Like, we know that there are horror elements to this, right? I would describe this as like literary with a little bit of horror, thriller, weirdness at the end, but I wanted more questions, more creepiness, just like little things throughout the book, which I think Delilah tried to do, but I don't know if they were executed the way I would have wanted them to be. They weren't creepy enough to make for a satisfying ending, because then when all of this stuff, and it goes there, okay? When all of it started happening, I was just like, okay. The twist is, in my opinion, so predictable. And I saw this in a lot of reviews, but I honestly don't mind, because I didn't think that it was supposed to be this like huge, super out there reveal, because it was so set up from the beginning. But again, had we started getting a little bit of some answers, or Ro herself starting to discover like even more of like what is going on here, I think that I would have enjoyed it. But for it all to come together at the end and then just be absolutely like ridiculous, there was at one point what I think was supposed to be like a plot device that the author was using for this big, it was like a reveal on top of a reveal that was supposed to leave us just at the end being like, what? I laughed, but not like a what, like a okay, no, because the way that it was done was so ridiculous that I was like, you did not just try to do that, did you? And I wish that I could make a comparison to a book that I read recently, but I don't want it to like give anything away. No. Okay, and the fact that I have experienced that same plot device done so poorly in books so close together is really interesting to me. But I did think it was cool because the main character, Ro, does mention at the beginning being from New York. I don't know where they're at now. She talks about her mom living in Savannah, but I don't know if they're in the South. It kind of gave me Southern vibes. But I was left almost like more disappointed in the execution of this, because it explores one of my favorite themes in horror, which is, really my favorite things in general, which is talking about queer relationships, but specifically like sapphic, unhealthy relationships and the nuances that come along with this. I'm giving this 2 stars. I don't know why. Most of this was a 1-star experience for me. Just don't want to give this a 1 because it didn't like offend me. Maybe 1.5. I've given so few actual 1 stars this year, and I think a couple of them have been queer books, and I hate that. So not off to a fantastic start, but hopefully things are going to get better. They did get better with the bookstores. We at least have that to fall back on. Okay, so I left 3 Lives in Company, my little book in bag, in hand, in purse, and walked over like a 10-12 minute walk, which ended up being a little bit longer than I was expecting, to the Strand. I actually hadn't heard about this until I was looking up bookstores, which, how did I miss this? I have no idea, because the Strand is huge, and I believe it's like one of the oldest bookstores, if not the oldest bookstore in New York. It's been open for I think like 95 years. It started off, I pulled up some information here from their website. It started off as like a little used bookstore that opened in 1927 on what was known as like Book Row in New York, and there were like over 40 bookstores in that little area at the time. And now I think that it's like the only one that's kind of left of that. Maybe it even changed locations, I would guess, because it's no longer just like a small little used bookstore. They have like over 2.5 million books in all different types. Like they have rare books, they have new books, used books. I could have spent an entire day in that store, to be perfectly honest with you. It was huge. It was awesome. They had carts. It kind of felt like the Barnes and Noble of indie bookstores. Felt like a big bookstore. Like I would have questioned whether it was an independent bookstore had I not already like looked it up and known the history of it, because it's just so massive, and they have like so much merch. We'll get to, I did buy something. So many books that I think it's 3 levels. I only stayed on the first level, and I really only stayed in like the main section. But instantly I was so excited about how they chose to organize all of the books, because when you walked in there, one of the first things I saw was this huge like round thing of staff picks with exactly what I was looking for, which is books with blurbs about why different staff members loved them. That is my shit. I want to know, you are surrounded by books all of the time. What are you recommending? What have you read and you loved? And how are you going to pitch that? Because chances are it's going to make me want to buy a book. if we're being honest here. This was also the first time I started seeing a lot of signed copies of books and just like random signed copies. And as someone who lives in a small town, that like if you're getting a signed copy, it's because specifically like Barnes and Noble has worked with the author to sign a bunch of books. I had never really like seen that before. We're just like randomly one copy of the book will have like a sticker that says signed copy on it. And I was just like in heaven in this bookstore, okay? There were so many different tables with curated selections of books, whether that was queer books, banned books, POC authors and voices, very specific niches, horror books. I felt a lot less overwhelmed when looking for books because I at least kind of knew where to start and what tables that like I just probably wasn't gonna find any books on, so I didn't have to look at those as hard, even though I still kind of glanced over all of them. And there were a ton of people, but I was also kind of there close to close. By the time that I was leaving, they were giving closing announcements. I wish I would have had more time in there. I wanted to go back. If I had had time to go back, I probably would have. I also wish that like this is where I would have picked up some gifts because I'm not much of like a souvenir person when I travel places. I don't want to get people just like random keychains and shit. So especially like for my mom, at this point, I was absolutely starving and stressed out about where the fuck I was gonna eat because I was just really overwhelmed. I'm gonna need this book that you're about to sit on. Can I have this before you lay down? Thanks. So I ended up getting 2 things, but I haven't quite broken my 1 book rule. I almost did. I really wanted to break my 1 book rule already. I picked up, and we've got a theme going on here with book covers, with flowers and faces. That is my shit, okay? Where Darkness Blooms by Andrea Hanna? I'll have to look that up. But specifically the reason I picked it up is because I'd already seen this book. I had it saved, the audiobook on Scribd, but my library didn't have a copy of it and I couldn't find an ebook copy of it. So I was like, maybe this will just be a book that, this is Oliver's channel now, that I will just listen to on audio. But this is specific, excuse me, Oliver, excuse me, a signed, oh, okay, thank you. A signed copy, a signed copy. And I don't think all of them were signed, if I remember correctly. It was just like the ones that were on the top. Maybe they like go and replace them with more signed copies. This felt more to me like something that was special and specific to the Strand. Yes, I have this hideous signed sticker on here that I could take off, but do I want to take off the sticker that says Strand Signed Edition? Probably not. But one more thing that I did pick up at this point because it was necessary was a bag. Not only was I like, okay, this will be cute. I'll have, like, I love these canvas bags. I travel with them all the time to put random shit in, but also I needed a bag to carry my shit around in since the bag that I got at the other store didn't have handles, which was fine. We're saving the environment. I get it. I'm good with it. I understand that in bigger cities, you're expected to bring a bag, and I just didn't think about that. But I learned, and I got this bag, and I was like, I can now use this as my bag when I go to other stores. And it's cute. It says the Strand on this side. It has a cute little New York City skyline. There were other bags there. I didn't look too hard. They were in the checkout line, and I was just ready to get out and get some food. I do think, however, where the receipt is for all of these things, who knows? I just started shoving them in random books and stuff. Yes, this tote bag was more expensive than the book that I bought. The book was $19. The tote bag was $25. So I did technically break my rule of like only buying one thing, but that was a worthwhile investment. The Strand on it, super cute. Oh, they have lots of locations, apparently. Where Darkness Blooms is described as a supernatural thriller in a town where the sunflowers whisper things and the land thirsts for blood. Say no more, okay? We're also following the daughters of 3 women who, in this town, women just go missing, and this is just kind of normalized. What book did I read? Oh, no, it wasn't a book. I finally watched It with Morgan. I'd watched It too, but I had never seen the first one. Come to find out, I think it would have made a lot more sense if I had seen that first movie. And that's what I was thinking of, is like them being in a town where people die/go missing and everyone is just kind of like, that's just how it is around here. Not that I'm comparing this to It at all, but that's what this reminded me of. Because in this town, women go missing all the time, or they die randomly, and people are just like, this is just how it is. So we're following the daughters of 3 women who, a couple of years ago, just mysteriously one night, just were gone. And they're like, excuse me? And now they all live together in this house that like their moms shared. Hello, I'm trying to do a reading. I've only read like the first 2 chapters, I think, and we're really just getting a setup of the relationship dynamics between these girls. We have a set of twins. We have Delilah, who kind of seems to be like the older sister vibes, excuse me, kind of helping to try to keep track of everyone. And then we have Bo, who is helping to set up this memorial for their moms that is going to happen. And seems like she's just struggling, which fair enough. We're already getting the sunflower imagery. They're in Kansas, and there is a big storm that's blowing through right now. I'm very excited about it. I'm feeling more hopeful about this book. We'll see where it goes. I feel like my camera is not focused on anything because it doesn't know where to focus right now. Maybe because of you. I only have like less than 100 pages, I think, of When Darkness Blooms, Where Darkness Blooms. You would think the fact that I don't know the name of this book would indicate that I don't like it, but I'm actually really loving it. Really loving this. And I can see why people wouldn't. So let's talk. First off, I love when a normal hardback has just like something extra to add, and this is just so pretty. This is less creepy, horror-y, haunting vibes than I thought it was going to be, but I'm okay with that. And I do think that that was just my impression, because the blurb at the beginning talks about it being like a supernatural thriller, and that is yeah. I would describe it as a YA mystery thriller, but a character-based thriller following these 4 girls as they try to figure out what happened to their moms, because they're starting to suspect that maybe, just maybe, what the police said happened to their moms, that they just like disappeared one afternoon and no one's ever heard from them again, and they probably either left on their own accord, but since they literally left all of their stuff and their car, most likely they were just walking and then someone abducted them and then that was it. And there are some things that the girls are finding that is making that feel not correct. Nothing has really happened, I'm gonna be honest with you. We're just now getting to the point where something is happening, but unlike when I said that with Bloom, the last book, literally nothing had happened and I didn't enjoy any of the characters and the writing I wasn't vibing with. I love the writing in here and I am growing so attached to these characters. And that is what makes a story like this for me. I am fine if nothing really happens until the end, and we are getting like some questions and answers kind of plopped in there, which I do think helps, but this isn't like a fast-paced YA mystery thriller book. It's not paced like most YA thriller books that I've read, and I think that's why I really like it, because sometimes I think that for me, YA mystery thriller books are a little bit too plot focused, and since I am a prose and character girly, that doesn't always work for me. I was surprised because where I thought we were going to be with the plot of this book, I thought it would be kind of toward the end of the book, but things kind of started happening these last 50 pages that I was like, okay, where else are we gonna go from here now that we're getting some of these revelations? And nothing thus far has been too surprising to me. So that's why I was a little hesitant to like call it a mystery book, because I picked up on pretty quickly like what was happening, and I don't necessarily think that you're not supposed to pick up on it. I don't necessarily know if any of these revelations are supposed to be surprising. I'm not a super fast reader, so I'm hoping that I can sit down and read the rest of this in the next like hour and a half-ish. But I feel like that's gonna be pretty easy unless I get distracted by something, because I planned on just reading a little bit of this and then updating you around like the halfway mark, and instead I didn't want to stop reading, so I just kept sitting on the couch and reading more until I finally had to convince myself to go take a shower and put on makeup so that I could update you. Should we go get a nice coffee? But I don't have an audiobook to listen to. Yes, I do. I finished this. 5 stars. 5 fucking stars. I loved this. I will say the last like page, I'm just gonna pretend doesn't exist. I don't know what happened there. It doesn't affect the overall plot or story for me. We have queer girls, generational trauma, and just explorations of trauma in general, misogyny, cursed lands, sunflowers that whisper things, nuanced characters. Like, I love that these girls aren't perfect. They don't always make the right decisions. You don't always agree with what they're doing, but you can understand why they are doing it, and you can understand who they are. And they're not all written to be likable, because not all girls are likable. Most teenage girls, not that likable, okay? They're really awesome, but like, they also make some bold decisions sometimes, and I just fucking love that. I'm so glad. I almost let the fact that I saw a few, I don't know whether it was like the negative reviews on the audiobook, something about negative reviews in my mind almost swayed me. Dissuaded? Swayed. Is swayed a word? If you can be dissuaded, can you be swayed? It almost dissuaded me from picking up this book, and I honestly don't know if I ever would have if I didn't see this signed copy. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know exactly like what it was about this that made me pick it up more than anything else. other than the fact that maybe it was signed and I'd seen the cover and I thought it was pretty and I thought I'd probably like it. And I thought I had the audiobook available on Scribd that I could read this with, but then Scribd claims that I used up all of my audiobooks for the month and then I only have a selection of audiobooks I can listen to, which is funny because I've literally not completed a single audiobook this month. Also, actually not whatever. Another little rant, we had the Scribd rant. Audible, I went to go cancel it because I was like, I haven't used these credits in months. And realized that if you, I swear to God it was not always this way, but I could have sworn that even if you had credits on Audible, if you canceled Audible, you could still keep those credits and like use them whenever you were ready to use them. You just weren't getting new credits and you didn't have access to like the Audible Plus catalog or whatever that is. I went to go cancel Audible because I have like 5 unused credits because I hoard my credits and wait until like the perfect time to use them when I can't get a book at the library or Scribd and I really need the audiobook version of something. And it told me that I could cancel, but that I would lose all my credits if I didn't cancel before the end of my membership. So now I'm just stuck in this membership with Audible because I don't know what audiobooks that I want to use those credits on. I also don't want to keep getting new credits, so that's really cool. But I digress. I really loved this. I feel like if you loved Wilder Girls, this kind of gives me that vibes, although not as hoary. However, pacing and things that were happening and reveals really did pick up there toward the end. And there's not like body horror in this the way that there was in Wilder Girls, but it gave me that kind of vibe of like girls working together. We got queer girls fighting against this, like they're stuck in one place, fighting against a grander enemy. I'm so excited that we found a 5-star book already. It's giving me more hope for the rest of this vlog. Okay, so apparently after looking at the reviews, a lot of people don't like this book. So just keep that in mind that it might just be a me thing and maybe don't take just my recommendation. I can see now that like, yes, there are some plot holes. Yes, there are some ways that I just had to suspend disbelief, but I didn't care. I loved it either way. And somewhat, this was weird. One of the reviews said it was like barely queer. Okay, there's a lot you can say about this book, but it being barely queer, and like they emphasized it, they were like barely queer, and I mean barely. That feels very odd to me. One of our main characters is queer from the very start, and that's like an integral part of not only the overall plot and mystery, but like her identity. Okay, whatever. To me, it felt very queer. Okay, so day 1, book shopping in New York, over. Next day, I had to be at the dress rehearsal for the panel that I was speaking on in the morning. A good change came out of that. So my original plan was that I was going to go to Brooklyn because in Brooklyn was the Ripped Bodice, which is an all romance bookstore, which if you've been here before, you might be thinking, Lexa, why the fuck would you go there? You don't connect with romance. To which I would tell you, yes, you're correct. But will I ever stop trying? No, I will not. So I thought if there was gonna be one place that I could find a romance book that I would love, it would be there. Also, just the concept of it sounded so cool. It looked so pretty. I was like, this is gonna be a vibe. And then there were a few other bookstores in that area that I was excited about. However, I was so excited because when I was talking to, I'm not gonna say her name, the woman who I was working with at TikTok, absolutely incredible, so lovely. Everyone who I've met, genuinely, at TikTok, like every employee has been wonderful to work with. She grew up in New York and she was asking me like, what do you plan on doing? What do you like? How can I give you some recommendations? And I was like, okay, do I admit to her that like, I'm not planning on doing most of the touristy things. I just want to go to a bunch of bookstores. And then I was like, yeah, I might as well. So I told her that. I was like, I went to 2 bookstores last night. My plan is just to hit up as many as I can. But I do have a Broadway show that I have to go tonight because I went to go see Wicked. That started at 7. I had to be there at like 6 something, I think. And I also needed to make sure I ate. And we had talked about Taylor Swift somewhere in the conversation and how I'd been to the Eras Tour 3 times this year. And she was like, well, you have to go to the bookstore that was in the 10-minute version of All Too Well. And I was like, excuse me? Come here. Tell me again. Tell me all about this. So that is where I changed all of my plans for the day. I had to make sure that I went here. So I went to Housing Works bookstore, and this is actually, it used to be, she was telling me that it was a bookstore and then next to it was a clothing shop, but now they're combined into one. The bottom level is a bookstore. There's also a cafe, and the top level is where they sell like used clothing, and everything in there, the clothes and the books, are all donated. There's also like lots of albums and magazines and just really cool things. And the whole point is that like they are an organization, all of the money and all of their profits go toward different causes, like helping people with HIV and AIDS, helping people who are unsheltered, other social justice causes, tons of different things. And I was like, this is exactly what I am looking for. And I get to go to the bookstore where the 10-minute version of All Too Well, my favorite Taylor Swift song of all time. I show everyone who comes into my life that music video, and I sit there and I watch them while they watch it. And I'm like, do you love it as much as I do? So while this wasn't next to another bookstore I wanted to go to, lucky for me, it was pretty close to Big Bud Press, which is a clothing store. And let me tell you, okay, I found one pair of pants in my entire life that fits me as well in my hips as it does my waist. And I thought that if I was gonna find another pair of pants, it would be there, which I was correct. But I had been wanting to try on their pants in person rather than having to order them online. Oliver, leave your sister alone. What is this? I am so glad that I got to experience this moment. The only thing is that I was like taking it all in so much that I didn't even think to myself to play All Too Well over my headphones while I was there. Oh my God, now just half my hair is falling out? Fantastic. Lovely. Okay, they have these two gorgeous staircases that like come down into the books. It's all used books, like I was saying, they're all donated. I didn't have a chance to sit at the coffee shop because by the time that I thought that maybe I wanted to do that, even if I had had time, which I don't think I would have, all of the tables were full, so I was like, that kind of defeats the point of like sitting down and reading here. But they did have like a really cute little cafe. While I was roaming the shelves, there were a few different things that I was seeing. I was kind of leaning toward possibly getting a middle grade. However, then I saw this, which I've heard Kayla talk about, and this is gonna be one of those books that I'm not sure whether it's going to work for me or not, but I thought that and therefore almost did not read Leave the World Behind because I thought it was gonna not be my kind of horror, my kind of book. It's not really horror. And then it was. And then it was like one of my favorite books of the year. So I feel like this has that possibility. And also, I know you're technically, okay, here's the thing. I don't know a ton about this. I know you're not supposed to sell ARCs. If like it's a used bookstore that donates all of their profits to charity and helpful causes, and like they didn't buy this from anyone, someone donated it. I get why you're not supposed to sell ARCs, but also like, would it be better for this to end up in the trash? I don't think so. And either way, it was already there, so I did buy it. But I do have the like completed audiobook that I can read along to, just like in case, because sometimes ARCs, there's like different things, they end up taking things out or adding things. And it's like a decently floppy paperback, which is my preferred brand of book. I still don't know how to style this hair. It is what it is. What I know of this book thus far, having not read any of it yet, there is a haunted escape room. But when you hear that, you think, oh, okay, this is like creepy, horror, haunted. We're gonna be living this haunted escape room. But I have heard that that's not really it. Like it's mainly focused on the, I think there are 4 main characters that are in this escape room together, and they all get like a really big cash prize if they end up making it all the way through without like saying the safe word. But then one of them gets killed. And that sounds like a super plot heavy, dark book, but I've heard that that's not the case and that it's like more character study and you're not actually spending as much time in this escape room as you would expect by that synopsis. And because I know that, I feel like I'm starting off in a good place going into this book. I know what to expect, and I also have the audiobook, which I feel like is gonna help too. And I really need to get this vlog up because I have not posted a vlog in quite some time because I haven't actually completed a reading vlog in a while. I've filmed so many clips and then it's never just come together. So I need to get started. I am in the middle of getting ready for a date and I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to get ready and update you. So how about we get ready together while I talk to you about this book here, because I still don't know how I feel about it. First off, what is it about? I feel like it would be really hard to market this book because when you hear about a story about people who are going to this like full contact escape room, and if you make it all the way through without saying the safe word reprieve, then you get $60,000 as a group or $15,000 a person. You think, okay, this is gonna be good because like this is supposed, like Quickly House is supposed to be like disgusting and disturbing and like so many people don't approve of it. And in reality, only like this much of the book, random little spurts of it, are inside of the escape room itself. And the rest of it is kind of just like a slice of life of each one of these main characters. So the 3 separate points of view we get are Kendra, who is a teenage girl that her dad just passed away and now she's having to move to Nebraska, which is where Quickly House is. And she ends up taking a job there. And she really loves horror books. Like she's always talking about what Stephen King novel she's reading and about how like Stephen King novels have like impacted her life and about which ones are like good and which ones aren't. Then we have the point of view of Leonard. Leonard is like this middle-aged dude, I think, who works the front desk or manages this hotel. He ends up being connected to Quickly House because he calls up the owner wanting to ask his opinion and like get some advice on like starting his own hotel. But that's not really where that storyline ends up going. Instead, we kind of follow him as he's like going to Thailand to explore this relationship of sorts. Yeah, because the owner of the Quigley house, John, was like telling him all about it. This is also set in the 90s, keeping that in mind. Then we have a third perspective of Jaidi, and he is from Thailand. We follow him like when he's first in high school over in Thailand and then ends up going to college in the States. And he's gay and ends up coming over to the United States to follow and try to find his old high school teacher. All of these characters you don't really like. We also get technically a perspective from Brian, who is Kendra's cousin, but that's only because like we're not getting a separate point of view from him. We're kind of getting his point of view and his thoughts while in the escape room. You know kind of from the beginning where the story is going. Like you know who died. It's not that this is like really twisty. This is more an exploration on, it's a social horror on race, internalized racism, but also like institutional racism, microaggressions, homophobia, misogyny, all of these different things, like how all of those manifest in different people. And they kind of all represent. And I think the thing with this book is that it does such an incredible job doing what it wanted to do. Like what this book wanted to do was not right. Like it wasn't supposed to be a horror book. It was supposed to be a literary exploring these themes from a very character focused view with the backdrop of horror, kind of mirrored these real life horrors of racism, misogyny, homophobia that are happening. And it did that so well. And there were so many times in this book that I was like, wow, this feels real. None of these characters are like, well, you don't like the decisions that you're making. It's not enjoyable to be reading about them, to be perfectly honest with you. But it feels real in a sense. I'm left feeling like this book didn't do anything wrong. In fact, it did an incredible job doing exactly what it wanted to do. And in theory, that sounds like my thing. But did I have a good job? Like, did I have a good time reading this book? Absolutely not. No, not at all. Like, if I finally, thank God, the audiobook came through on Libby. If I didn't have the audiobook, there's absolutely no way that I would have finished. I keep saying that I need to rotate and then I keep slowly rotating back. There's no way I would have finished this. I was so ready to DNF it, but also the audiobook isn't an enjoyable experience. The narrator, not only does he speak so slowly, but the way that he speaks, kind of like not his voice, but like the way he is, like the intonations of his voice sound like a version of Siri. It sounds like a computerized person speaking to you. So that wasn't even necessarily enjoyable, but by the time that I wasn't going to listen to the audiobook at first, but then when I was about to DNF it, I was like, okay, this can't impact, like it can't make my experience any worse if I'm about to DNF it, so we might as well try it. And then I was able to kind of speed through it, mainly because I was able to listen to the audiobook so fast. I think I've settled on like a 3. I don't know who I would recommend this to. Loved all of the themes, and I almost would definitely read from this author again, but I think this combination of, I think it needed to be shorter. It was a slog to get through. This is like 400 pages. And I just think I could sit here and like talk about the nuances of this all day, but that's what it boils down to. This book did nothing wrong. It did what it set out to do. It was just not a good time for me at all. But there were some moments that I did enjoy. So that was Reprieve, bought at the All Too Well 10-minute version music video bookstore. And all I can say is to Reprieve, maybe we got lost in translation. Maybe I asked for too much. So that brings us to the final bookstore, which I truly believe was my favorite. And I'm so glad I went and I almost didn't. So what happened was, that was Wednesday. That was Wednesday. On Thursday, I had the speech, and then there was also like a happy hour that lasted until 5:30, but there was a little bit of a break in there where they broke out into different like sub panels. And I wasn't involved in any of those, so literally right a block away was the New York City Library, which had a lot less books in it than I thought it would be. Absolutely gorgeous building, got gorgeous footage. Where were the books? Which now that I'm thinking about it, there's so many people that probably come there, it's probably not a normal library. I think I would have enjoyed it more had I planned and then done the tour, because that's what I saw a lot of people talking about online that like tried to get in with the tour. I wasn't able to do that because it was just a last minute decision. I also ended up going to, I had a few more minutes. I was hoping there was another indie bookstore close by that I could stop in at, but there just wasn't. So I ended up stopping by the Barnes & Noble because I was like, let's just see. It's not the main huge one, I don't think, but it was fine. I think I literally took like one clip of something, and that was literally just to send to my friend because she was telling me about this book. I stopped in there, ended up getting a Starbucks because I was, again, hungry because I hadn't eaten. So by the time that I got done there, went back to my hotel room. I ended up cleaning, like packing and kind of cleaning up because I knew I had to leave pretty early the next day. And I was still trying to decide like what my game plan was because I didn't have enough time at that point to go to Brooklyn and see all of those bookstores that I wanted to see. So I was like, at that point, is it worth going? Because the Rip Bodice is gonna be closed and a few of the other ones. However, I did notice that the Greenlight bookstore was open until 8 or 10. I kind of think 10. Something really late that I was like, oh, okay. Wasn't expecting that. First, I went and got Thai food. It was delicious. In this experience, I think two things. I think there were a few things that added up to this being such a good experience. A, the layout of the store I just really loved. There were so many like ways for you to find books that you might not have heard of before, or to kind of identify what sections that you should be looking in depending on what kind of reader you are and what kind of books that you might be interested in. Also, I had eaten, which I will admit probably did impact my experience a little bit at the other places and probably led to it made it easier for me to have a good time. I had enough time to look around. Like I wasn't in a rush. They weren't about to close. I had a lot of extra time so I could do my lappity lap laps. When I tell you, I literally almost like, I think I made an audible noise, some sort of a gasp of excitement when I saw, just sitting right there on the top, a signed edition of Bunny by Mona Awad. And it's paperback, and the only edition I have of Bunny is a hardback. I've been wanting the paperback because I love that it's like this majority, I think it's reversed on the hardcover. It's black and then it's a pink bunny, and this is pink with the black bunny, and I love that so much. And it's signed. Instantly at that point I knew I was breaking my 2-book rule, or my 1-book rule, because I knew I wanted this copy, but I also didn't want to buy just a book that I have already read before. All of the other books, I honestly hadn't decided on this vlog yet, but I knew that I would want to buy books that like I get to experience the first time from these stores that I bought. And this was just like such a cool thing to find, and like I'll always think about my trip to New York and to Greenlight bookstores when I see it, but I've already read it and I'm going to reread it and annotate it, but like that's not really the point of why I was buying these like 1 book per store. So then I was walking around trying to decide what I wanted. There were lots of options, honestly. I wanted another book I hadn't heard of before. So lucky for me, they had my favorite kind of section, which are books, staff recommendations, a little note card about what you love so much about that book. And I had never seen of or heard of this book, like seen this book before, heard of it. And it was what was written on the card that I instantly was like, I need this. So Jessica is the one who recommended this. They say, if you have any interest in magic, including seeing invisible beings defying gravity and doorways to other realms, non-Western fantasy landscapes, queer coming of age / coming to the city stories, family drama on a continental scale, witty and gorgeous prose, also high stakes heists, avant-garde theater, romantic tensions, and experiments in urban infrastructure. Just go ahead and read this book and then we can be friends. Jessica, I would like to submit my application to be best friends, please. I've only read literally like 10 pages of this book and I'm so far already loving it so much. But other than that description, I don't know what else I can tell you about it yet. And I feel like if I just try to tell you about it now, I'm gonna look back at this footage and be like, oh my God, Lexa, why did you not just wait to give a little bit of synopsis of this book until you understood a little bit more of what was going on? So I'm going to make a good decision now and I'm gonna do that. I just wanted to let you know that I did in fact start this and go over the books that I got at the Greenlight bookstore. And there actually is one more book that I'll just like quickly mention that I got, not for myself though, and let you know that so far I am loving it and that I did actually end up using one of my Audible credits on this audiobook, because as I was reading it, I was just thinking like, I'm already loving it, but I feel like there's a chance that if I like the audiobook narrator, the experience is just gonna be even better with an audiobook. Quickly though, one other thing that I did get, not for myself, but for my mama at this bookstore, is the signed copy of Leaning Toward Light, Poems for Gardens and the Hands That Tend Them. My mama loves all things outdoors. Gardening, she raises monarch butterflies in the summer, takes care of birds and lets them eat out of her hand during the winter, and she loves poetry. And this is signed. And I'm just really excited for this. Plus, it just has like these beautiful pieces of artwork in it. Come on. So I'm going to go on my date, probably read a little bit more of the Saint of Bright Doors. That way I can come back to you with a knowledge of what is happening, and I'll let you know how everything goes. Hopefully both endeavors go well. And I have to do my bangs. Okay. Hello, hi. I am back from my date. It was a while ago. It went great. I've been reading since then, and I was waiting to update you until I kind of could explain the plot of this more, but I don't really know if I can yet. I'm on page like 90, so instead, but I'm loving it. Okay, so hang in there. But like instead I'm just gonna talk to you about like kind of what has happened thus far that I don't feel like is a spoiler at all. Okay, so Federer is our main character. At first we're meeting him when he's a kid, and he is being raised / trained by his mom to assassinate his dad and like do all of these other things. And his dad is kind of this like religious figure, cult leader, God-like figure to a lot of people. And he has like a really abusive and violent childhood that we get a little bit of a glimpse of. And then we're following him as an adult after he has escaped that life from his mom, kind of let all of that go, let go of like what he thought his destiny was gonna be to like do all of this violent shit, and is like now living in this bigger city, going to group therapy. I love the contrast between like this fantasy like world because he also sees things that aren't there. Oh yeah, so like our main dude, he's got some things going on. He doesn't have a shadow. He kind of defies the laws of gravity whenever he wants to, and he sees like these apparitions that aren't there. I don't know if they're like demons or ghosts or otherworldly beings, and they kind of accept the idea of like these other worlds or other planes of existence. But then we also have this contrast of like modern technology, like DNA and texting. And he lives in a city that has like a universal basic income plan where like you have enough money and you have like, I guess like not necessarily a universal basic income, but like housing and transportation and food are free. And then if you want, you know, like the basics, things that you need in order to exist, and then if you want to work and make more money for like some of the extras, you can do that too. But like all of the stuff that you need to survive is provided for you. There's also just like beautiful casual queerness in here. Our main character is queer. We have queer side characters, and it's just, it is like what it is. And we've talked a little bit about the government and like religion possibly not being okay with that, but it wasn't talked about for a while in the plot. Like it was just kind of like that we were thrown that information, and that's just like, it is what it is. And I love that. And then there's also this aspect of these bright doors, and they are doors that like once they've been closed for a while, they can like turn into these like magical bright doors that never really open again, and no one's ever sure what's on the other side of them. And some people are put in charge of studying these doors to try to figure out like what makes them bright doors. Like part of the bright doors is that the government regulates that they're like painted bright colors a lot. And we don't know what's on the other side of them, but Federer goes up to one of these doors one day and senses like the wind and like can smell some things and can tell there's something behind them, but isn't quite sure what it is, but just kind of feels more connected to these doors. So he's starting to explore that. And not a lot has honestly really happened. There's a lot of political intrigue. We're getting a lot of world building in terms of who are the main players in the politics and the religion and how those are very closely intertwined. I love the way that it's written. It's got a little bit of humor, but also has like some beautiful moments, and the prose is really awesome. And I really, really like the audiobook. I think it's helping me to enjoy the experience even more. I have to wake up decently early tomorrow because we're going to the Eras Tour movie, me and my best friend, and I think we're gonna like get ready together and stuff like that, and I don't know what time she's coming over. So it's pretty late right now. I think it's like 1 a.m. I'm going to sleep, maybe read a little bit more of this, but honestly, unless like my feelings on this change like significantly one way or the other, I'll probably just update you when I finish it, because I don't know if there's going to be much more about the plot that I'm going to be able to tell you, but I also don't know how much plot there's going to be in this book, so we'll see. To be honest, it's been a few days, and this video is going to end up going up later than I wanted it to, but it was a struggle to get through the last part of this, which makes me so sad because I was loving this for a while. But I think the fact, I can't even remember the last I said to you, and I've been having issues trying to upload a video from my actual job from my phone for 2 hours. So I'm already a little frustrated, so maybe this isn't the best time to be filming this update, but it's gotta happen. Does technology just hate me today? What's happening? So around halfway through this book, I had been taking notes on like my feelings, and I said that this reminded me kind of the Atlas 6, where you didn't really know what was going on, nothing was really actually happening, but it was just like really character based, and you just had to kind of go with the flow. My opinions changed on that a little bit. It now reminds me a little bit more of the Starless Sea, which was not a win for me, in the sense that there was like some magical things happening and we had a lot of character, Like, we were following characters. I don't know if there was necessarily a lot of character development, but we were in fact following characters. And nothing was happening, and you were just confused, in terms and politics and magic was getting thrown at you, and you just kind of had to accept that that's how it was. But there was beautiful writing, and that lost me in the Starless Sea, and I think it ultimately lost me in the Stand Up Right Doors. I will say, I finally, like around the 70% mark, when I seriously consider DNFing this book, and I almost never DNF when I'm that far into a book. I know kind of earlier usually. I went to reviews to see like what people were saying, and there was one review that was really helpful. That, again, I would pull it up if I had access to my phone. But the reviewer was talking about how this is a retelling of like the Buddha and his son. Don't quote me on that. The reviewer even said that if you're not familiar with that story, chances are that this is gonna kind of lose you, and I think that's what happened to me. And the thing is that I love being able to explore different like religions or folklore or even just like cultural stories inside of a fiction novel, and especially inside of fantasy. But I don't want to say, because I don't think it was necessarily the job of the author to explain that to you. So that's not what made me not like it. But what made me not like it isn't that it wasn't explained, but that because without that knowledge, which like, I don't think this is like, it doesn't reference that anywhere. Like I could not follow what was going on. And it did not feel like it had a plot. And like our main character, Feder, literally at one point, he just starts making decisions. Like, you can't even begin to predict where this plot is going to go. Not in a good way, but because like he's just randomly making decisions based off of his gut. And the thing is that a lot of the issues that I had with this book, I think that there were some moments that were so well done because they get explained. Like, there were things that I was going to talk to you about, being like, hey, I wish that they did this. Hey, I wish this was done differently. But then the reason that they're not is explained, and I thought that it was really well done. And I don't want to say what those things are just in case it's a spoiler. Then we have so many moments where it's just like Feder just does something because it's going to move the plot along. And I don't understand what his motivations are or what he's doing or like what the end goal is. And there, like I think I said, like there really is, does not have a normal plot structure, but it lost me. And I think it lost me because there were so many times that it was just so boring. And we went through like 200 pages of stuff just to kind of loop around to where we were at the beginning. And because of that, whenever there was these like big moments that I think were supposed to be really impactful, I wanted to feel them, but I just didn't. But all of this being said, I did find out by going through a lot of the reviews that this is a debut author, and I do think that I would read from this again because this did so much so well. The way that queerness is done in this book, beautiful, love it. It just is. And there are non-binary characters, and they just are. Like, it's not explained. There's even a little dabba-dabba, a little possibility, a little hint to polyamory. And I honestly don't know what I'm gonna rate this. In some ways, a 3 seems high. But in some ways, like there were moments that I was like, oh, that was really well done. So probably just a 3, but it's a conflicting 3. And I guess that's it. I think that's the note that we're ending on. I wish that it was higher, but what did we have in this vlog? We did at least have 1 star. Well, we did have 1 star. We did at least have a 5-star read. I think if I were to try to order these, I already know Where Darkness Blooms, #1. Then I think I would say The Stand Up Right Doors, then Reprieve, then Bloom. I had so much fun in New York. I already can't wait to go back. There are so many more bookshops that I want to go to. An error occurred during export. Of course it did. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, put a flower emoji in the comments below for all the references to flowers and blooming that we had. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.